Secretary Solis has furthered the interests of the middle class, fought for protections of workers, health and safety, and trained workers for the jobs of the future, and put people back to work. What she's done, it's good for families, it's good for the labor movement, and it's good for the IATSE. And for that, she'll always have our respect and our deepest thanks. And brothers and sisters, the Honorable Hilda Solis.
Thank you. Thank you. And as we say in my language, muchas gracias. Thank you, President Matt Loeb, for that wonderful introduction, and congratulations also on your recent election to the board of the National Labor College. Good morning, brothers and sisters. Good morning. Representing the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, Moving Picture Technicians, Artists, and Allied Crafts of the United States, its territories, and Canada, better known as IATSE. Thank you for having me here, and what a pleasure it is to see all of you. It's my pleasure to join you at this morning meeting at your 67th Quadrennial Convention. I can't believe that you've been in existence for 120 years. Amazing, since 1893. While other unions in the country have experienced an erosion in their membership, IATSE has proven the naysayers wrong by growing the membership ranks from 73,344 in 1993 to more than 113,000 rank and file members. Congratulations, IATSE. I want to take this moment to acknowledge President Matt Loeb for his outstanding stewardship of the union and commend him on continuing to fight for effective rank-and-file empowerment, political engagement, and decisive dedication to maintaining grassroots organizing efforts. He deserves a round of applause. That, together with the leadership of James B. Wood, the General Secretary Treasurer, and Thomas C. Short, International President Emeritus, I thank them all, and I thank all of you for being here this fine morning. You know, you all represent some of the finest craftsmen and women in areas like floor cover, greens, prop master, prop makers, photographers, accountants, dressmakers, and so much. And you help to keep it all thriving, this industry that we call entertainment, and much, much more. In fact, there's been more growth in your industry during this economic recovery at a very, very substantial rate. There are essentially hundreds of thousands of jobs attributed to trade shows, broadcasting, motion picture, recording, and the theatrical sectors. The potential to grow is even greater as our economy continues to heal and repair itself. But it couldn't happen by itself. It's happening because of all of you and your tenacity to get the work done. We need to be reminded, though, that back in 2009, our country lost over 8.5 million private sector jobs. And that's about the time when President Barack Obama took office. Now I can tell you, as the former Secretary of Labor, we've at least seen 6.5 million jobs put back, with very little help from the other side. And as I was sworn into office back in February of 2009, many people asked me why I would want to take the job as Labor Secretary during such economic hardships. In fact, this was one of the worst recessions that we had seen. It was even dubbed the Great Recession. And as we saw good middle class and union jobs disappear or shipped overseas, I know what that meant back home in California. I saw it even 3 years before it was technically declared a recession. In my home state of California, we saw areas where I grew up where unemployment rates were already at 9%, and that was 3 years before the recession was called. But I wasn't afraid to take on this challenge that the President asked me to step up to. In fact, I knew it would be very important to help face these challenges because I can't see myself ever turning my back away from a good fight. And that fight meant protecting middle-class jobs and making sure that hardworking people had their day in court. And so when he named me as Labor Secretary, I was proud to say at that moment that there was a new sheriff in town. And that comment alone made some waves in a lot of circles, let me tell you, especially a lot of anti-union circles. Folks thought that for somehow us going through the recession was a way of now an excuse to shortchange our workers and violate our labor laws. Well, guess what? The administration got to work immediately, and especially at my department, we were able to hire up well over 700 new investigators. After living through two terms, or 8 years, in the previous administration where you saw a Department of Labor just lifeless. No ability to go after violators that weren't paying appropriate wages to our workers. People would call and make complaints, and nobody would answer the phone. Nobody would follow through on these investigations. But now, the new sheriff and a new president were in town, and we quickly moved to hire up 300 new wage and hour investigators to help ensure that workers were paid properly for their work that they had already done. And my wage and hour division collected hundreds of millions of back wages from employers who cheated their workers out of money that they were legally owed. We investigated misclassification abuses, and we also updated our Davis-Bacon surveys so that all workers could get appropriately paid. I initiated more investigations than any of my other 24 predecessors. And in 2011, we collected more back wages for exploited workers than any other year in the American history. But like any good sheriff knows that punishing bad guys is the last resort, a good sheriff knows her first responsibility is to protect and to serve. And that's what I did. I gave my OSHA staff, when it came to worker safety, the tools that they needed. We focused on being proactive and not reactive. We focused on helping employers do right by their workers before accidents occurred. We added more than 100 OSHA inspectors to monitor work sites, conduct targeted inspections for the most dangerous professions. We went after employers that did not bother to provide adequate training and safety equipment, all with the intent to save lives and prevent injuries to workers. We even launched what we call a Severe Violators Enforcement Program to give extra attention to employers who endangered their workers in the past. And we levied some of the largest fines against some of the biggest corporations like BP. During the tragic oil spill on the Gulf Coast, which cost millions and billions in economic ruin for our communities, we went after that corporation and we made sure that they paid back. We went after corporations also in one tragedy that I recall that was just too incredible to even talk about, and that was the deaths of 29 coal miners in West Virginia. And that explosion was known as the Upper Big Branch explosion. And let me tell you, it could have been prevented. It could have been prevented had people been playing by the rules and instituted the safety precautions that were necessary. We issued 369 violations and levied over $11 million worth of penalties. That was one of the largest fines against a mining operator. We can't bring back those 29 lives, but we can sure do our best now to prevent and further any more loss of lives in these industries by enforcing our laws and protecting all of our workers. And after Hurricane Sandy, I remember going out on the beach, New York and the surrounding communities to see what devastation had occurred. And I wanted to make sure that all workers that were involved in the cleanup were kept safe and protected. And I found that many didn't have a clue as to what they were being exposed to. So we got to work immediately, and our OSHA division got right to work. But we still have a lot more work to do, because when it comes to human tragedies like that, of course that may not be preventable, but we should do the very best that we can to prevent any more loss of life or illness. So we have to remain vigilant. IATSE, you're just another extension of what we've been trying to do with the Department of Labor, because you've been out there in the forefront educating your members and also preventing dangerous fatalities. Your workers are reminded almost every single day when they go out and work on a site about invisible fumes, smoke, toxic substances that require protective gear. I think I know something a little bit about that. My father used to work in a battery recycling plant years ago, and he'd come home talking about the exposure, the contaminants, and the illnesses that were prevailing amongst the workers that he was trying to organize when he was out there as a shop steward. He'd come home and tell us about their hardships. And a couple of years later, we saw some of his colleagues fearful of losing their lives because they had been exposed to lead poisoning and developed different cancers. All that, I believe, could have been prevented had people in the early beginning stages there, before they got organized, provided protection for their workers. But that battery recycling plant is still there. More lives are being saved now, more safety and protection underway, but we still need to have more convincing arguments to have the industries, all industries, step up to the plate and pay that additional amount of funds or instruction and training that's necessary so that we can keep our workers alive, so they don't have to worry about going in when they start work, but when they come home after their shift. Every family deserves to have their family member come home safe after work. Something about your industry. Everyone looks at the glamour, the entertainment industry and how lucrative it is. And gee, wouldn't someone want to be up there in front of a stage performing and getting all those accolades? But people don't know about the long hours and the hardships that many of you all have to go through and sustain, putting in long hours and dealing with some of the most arduous and labor-intensive situations. And now that we're seeing our economy come back slowly, we have to stay focused on restoring the middle class and the jobs that you all have. And we have to fight. We have to fight for better salaries, pension protections, and better health care benefits. To do so, we also need to elect people who are open to listening and hearing your voices and are in agreement with representation at the bargaining table. And I'm talking about collective bargaining rights and the right to organize, not to belittle those other states, because I come from California. We just had our own battles. But I know in places like Wisconsin, Ohio, Michigan, and Florida, they need to hear the good work that IATSE's been doing and other people in the labor movement, that we're not just talking about union bosses, we're talking about human lives, we're talking about families, we're talking about dignity and respect for workers who expect to get paid for their day's work. That's what we have to make sure of. Before I came here, I looked at what you all were doing in other parts of the country, and you didn't surprise me. I know that IATSE was leading the way and will continue to make strides, as you just did recently in New Orleans, with freight employees who voted overwhelmingly to be represented by IATSE and Local 39. Where are you, New Orleans? Let me see you. Workers continue to display their courage and determination in spite of hostile work environments and threats. And your workers have proven that they can defy the odds by standing up and having their voices heard. Congratulations. Also, your members proved it again, but this time in the West Coast, organizing Wizard Dream. Members reached out to 2 crews, 2 locations, and had meetings there, and they voted to hold out for a contract. As a result, crews joined their representatives on the sidewalk. And after a few long hours, a contract was signed, and 50-member crew now have health and pension contributions retroactive to that date of hire. Please stand and be recognized. You know, these may sound like small achievements, but they are truly inspiring stories. And the labor movement must learn from your examples, and they have to keep on fighting. And you know, the public, when they watch a stage production, film, or TV show, they only see the glamour of the entertainment industry, but do not realize the many long hours and the specialized skills and training that crews have to put forth for these productions. Just last week, I visited Paramount Studios once again in Hollywood, where I met with representatives from Sony, Warner Brothers, etc. And I was amazed to see the display, New York City, the lot there that still stands proudly, where Lucille Ball filmed I Love Lucy and where The Godfather was actually depicted. The public has to be reminded that the history of the entertainment industry is intertwined with that of IATSE's own history. And IATSE helps to ensure that behind-the-scenes workers get their fair share. And as we move forward, we can help ourselves by supporting our newest Secretary of Labor, Thomas Perez, who was just confirmed And even though 2 NLRB members were removed recently, there have been 2 recent nominations. So let's make sure that they get through. So we're going to need your work on that. Furthermore, we can't allow for further stalemates in Congress to persist. Therefore, we need to take action to see to it that more labor-friendly representatives get elected to Congress and preserve the right to organize, collectively bargain, and associate with unions as they deem fit. Yes, we have a lot of work ahead of us, but the labor movement hasn't let this country down. It's the folks that don't want unions to have a voice at the table that stand in the way of providing decent wages, pensions, and benefits to workers that have earned them. The union movement, in my opinion, is the new civil rights movement of the 21st century. And it is our job to stand together and fight together to elect leaders who will stand up for working people. If we refuse to give in to cynicism, then I know that we can accomplish much together. Soon we'll have some budget discussions, negotiations going on in Washington, D.C., and they'll be dealing with raising the debt ceiling again. But we have to meet our obligations, so we can't let the other side somehow captivate all the attention. We have to be rational about what we do. And we also have to spend time on fixing our broken immigration system, because we need economic security. So I'm here to tell you that even though I'm the ex-Secretary of Labor, I'm going to continue to do everything I can to have my voice heard and to help articulate and exemplify all of you, hold you up as examples of what we can be, because there is a better tomorrow for us in the United States and Canada and other places where collective bargaining is a part of our household. So I'm looking forward to working with you in solidarity and also in unity, because we haven't seen anything yet. So I'm counting on you, I'm counting on IATSE, and I'm counting on the American public to better understand that when we talk about collective bargaining and unions, we're really talking about empowering all of us here in the United States, every middle-class family, every child that wants to have a future in this country, every grandchild that wants to have a future here. That's what it's about, the American way. Thank you, and God bless you for having me here.